Good afternoon. This is Alexandra Talleyrand for ANN, July 1st, 1742. We have been doing a series on Negro rebellions and uprisings. The man most responsible for prosecuting the accused in New York City is Chief Judge of the Supreme Court for the province of New York and putting an end to what has become known as the Great Negro Plot of 1741. Here he is to shed some light on the plot which baffled white New Yorkers since they treated their slaves so well. Welcome, Judge Daniel Horsmanden.
Pleased to meet you, Miss Talleyrand. I'm happy to tell you how I put an end to all Negro uprisings pretty much by myself.
Yes, we'll get to that, but first tell us about the makeup of the slave population of New York City in 1741.
I know exactly what it was. New York City had a population of 8,666, of which 20% were black. 3 out of 4 households had 1 to 2 domestic slaves. In fact, the Dutch, who lived here before the British, had slaves since 1625.
Well, that's a lot of slaves. I understand slave unrests are not new to you.
I suppose. The New York Assembly passed a law that allowed slave owners to punish their own slaves for crimes at their own discretion. And if murder was involved, they were to be punished in a manner that was appropriate to the enormity of the crime.
All right, so vigilante justice was approved, no need for judge, trial, or jury. Now let's get to the slaves you convicted. Could you give us a summary of overall what happened?
Simply, Fort George was torched and 8 more fires were set. And by mid-April 1741, there were a dozen more. The houses burned seemed to be the property of slaveholders. So I called a grand jury to investigate, and we found at the center of this plot John Hewson's Tavern, where a slave named Caesar and an accomplice named Prince hid their stolen silver candlesticks. Caesar had a mistress by the name of Peggy Carey from Ireland, who was a notorious prostitute who he had gotten pregnant.
I'm Rosie Tinselberry. I'm the receptionist here. What is the fact that Caesar had a pregnant prostitute mistress from Ireland have to do with anything?
Oh, that just makes the story more colorful for the other judges.
No, I agree with Miss Tinselberry. Let's just stay with the facts, Mr. Horsminder.
It's Horsmanden, an indentured servant by the name of Mary Burton, who worked at the tavern, knew everything that went on there, from the unlawful gathering of blacks in violation of the black codes, and which includes giving drinks to slaves. She knew that John Hewson was hiding stolen merchandise. Mary was our chief witness and told us that Caesar and 2 other slaves, Prince and Cuffy, often talked about burning down the fort since 1737. And she knew that the tavern was the center of the plot and the war room. Cuffy confessed in jail that a slave named Quack set the fire because he was denied permission to see his wife, who was the governor's cook.
Hold it. Hold on, you're going too fast. How did you get a confession from Cuffy in jail and the story about Quack and his wife?
Oh, we didn't. We got a snitch named Arthur Price, who we put in the cell next to Cuffy. And through a keyhole in the door, Cuffy confessed to Price that Quack told him that he set the fire to the fort.
That is preposterous. So the whole proof of the plot is that since Quack was upset with the governor about his wife, he confessed to Cuffy in jail. Cuffy told the story through a keyhole to Arthur Price, the snitch, and therefore Quack is guilty for sure.
All right, Miss Tinselberry, I do see your point, but let's let Mr. Horsegrinder finish his story before our time runs out. Is there anything else?
It's Horsmanden. Yes, there is. A teenage slave came forward named Sandy, who heard that the plot was started by the Hewsons from the other slaves who fetched water from Mr. Comfort's well when Mr. Comfort was out of town. The other judges and I believed her because it was too inconceivable that a group of dumb black slaves could have devised such an elaborate scheme without white leadership.
I'm losing it. Who is Sandy and what does she have to do with anything?
I see. Here comes a reliable teenage slave witness for who some unknown reason convinces you that she is a friend of the court and tells you what you and the other judges want to hear. Did the defendants call any witnesses?
No, Caesar and Prince were without counsel. and didn't call any witnesses because they felt they were doomed.
So what did the jury decide?
It took them just a few minutes to decide that they were all guilty of violating the master-slave relationship and called it treason, and sentenced Prince, Cuffy, and Quack to be burned at the stake in public, which you know is a popular spectator event. The Hewsons were hanged together by the East River.
Of course they were. Everyone's doomed. Let's hang everybody.
But why such a severe punishment and everybody gets so mad?
Easy to answer. Sandy, the teenager, revealed further that the plot of the Hewsons included that Hewson Jr. was to become king of New York City and Caesar was to become governor, and the black men would take the murdered white men's wives as their own.
So to sum it up, what we have here is stolen candlesticks and a plot, possibly imaginary, to destroy New York City, all told from a 16-year-old indentured servant slave. No wonder New Yorkers were baffled to understand their slaves. Was Mary Burton paid for her testimony?
Yes, 100 pounds sterling, less expenses since she was resold during the course of the trials and is now out of town.
Hello, what can I do for you?
Well, is this where the slaves, Caesar, Prince, and Cuffy are to be tried?
Yes, and a whole bunch of other slaves. What of it?
Well, my name is Mary. I'm chief witness. I knew everything that was going down at the Hewson's Tavern and the plot to burn down New York and the fort. Well, I was promised 100 pounds sterling, but I just decided that ain't enough. I want 400 pounds. Or I'm gonna change my testimony to not guilty.
Oh, you will ya? Well, we don't have that kind of blackmail money to give away to servants. You can go back to jail and rot.
Well, I'm just gonna tell the judge I ain't seen nothing.
Well, how about 200 pounds sterling and you keep your mouth shut about this whole thing between you and me?
Okay, 200 pounds in untraceable notes.
You better get out of here now or I'll call the bailiff to have you rearrested on charges of blackmail and re-extortion.
But isn't the reliability of witnesses suspicious who are paid and who have personal reasons for testifying?
Oh no. I got all these confessions written in my journal here, which I'm selling. They are meticulously cataloged by names and owners and the dates when they confessed. It's 10 shillings, but I'll give you one for 3 shillings, and it has the list of all those I convicted. Negroes, masters or owners, committed, arraigned, convicted, confessed, burnt, hanged, transported to, and discharged.
That's not necessary. I think we have all the data we need to judge British justice in the 18th century.
Yes, Mr. Horsemanure, you should get a profession as a writer of fiction because you have all kinds of imaginary plots roaming around you. You should be dumped and removed.
You can't do that. And my name is Horsmanden, by the way. I work for the British Constabulary. I'm a judge appointed by and serving at the pleasure of a king.
Constabulary, huh? You mean the horse stables. You're a horse fodder who takes care of the British slave owners until they are kicked out.
Miss Tinselberry, I think you are overreacting. Thank you, Mr. Horsmanden, for your eye-opening description of 18th century British law and order applied in New York City. This is Alexandra Talleyrand for Abolition News Network, July 1st, 1742, saying I hope we see the end of slavery and British law as well. Good afternoon.